Welcome. Thank you for joining us on today's edition of Momentum TV from the Bagley College of Engineering. I'm Robert Green, the Assistant Dean of the Bagley College. I'm happy today to welcome as our host Dr. Bill Elmore. Dr. Elmore is the director of the Swalm School of Chemical Engineering, which houses both our chemical engineering and our petroleum engineering programs. Dr. Elmore, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Much. It's good to be here.
So you and I have known each other for a while, so we have some secrets we may or may not want to share. But I'd like to start by asking you a situation a lot of our prospective students and new students have. You did not start in engineering.
No.
You started in something else. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yes. I started at a small private university in Arkansas. I went there to major in music, of all things, and I teased my students. In the 70s, I had a lot of hair and a pretty big guitar, and we know what happened to the hair, and the guitar broke. And seriously, I went into the music major just very briefly and began to see that that school was known for a lot of good musicians. I had actually seen over the course of my first year there someone go off to Nashville, try to make it big, came back and talked about the bussing the tables, and I thought, I'm not sure the music field's for me. So I switched. Gradually made my way to the University of Arkansas after a couple of years into chemical engineering, mainly through the influence of three of my high school buddies that were all chemical engineering majors.
Okay, so friends do play a role.
They absolutely do, yes.
But you not only just changed your major, you went on all the way and got your PhD. So what possessed you, what enticed you to go get a doctorate? How did you know to do that?
Okay, well, I had, my parents were both public school educators, and I told them pretty forcefully in high school, I will never teach, that's just not for me. And as I got out in industry, I found that I really enjoyed sort of the aspects of involved with coaching people, just teaching people things on the job. And so the opportunity came up to work on my master's. And then after a little more time in industry, I returned to finish my PhD. And the academic position, one came up while I was in my final year of my PhD, and that was a great opportunity, kind of unexpected. Someone took a sabbatical at a local private school again that had an engineering program, and so I applied and taught there for a year in mechanical engineering, and that just really turned the crank for me. I thought, this is what I want to do. So I then, after finishing my PhD, went to Louisiana Tech for 15 years, and I'm now starting my 18th year here at Mississippi State this fall.
Well, we're glad you're here. So it's interesting that you did mechanical engineering and with chemical engineering degrees. I think that shows something to our students about how there's a lot of overlap between different fields.
When I talk to prospective students, and I try to meet each prospective student that comes into our program interested in chemical or petroleum, I want to start with a broad discussion about engineering in general and just the fun that you have in solving problems. This morning I actually met with a prospective student that was wondering, well, what do I do? And sort of hesitant about, were they just going to be living out in the field, as they put it. I said, well, there's some of that, certainly. But I said, there's so much variety in career options across the wide engineering majors, engineering and science, that you can find something, and within any given job, you're going to have opportunities to sort of shape your career, whether it's leaning towards maybe corporate or design or applications out in the field, operations. There's just so many different things that I've seen our students do over the years.
You're also a licensed professional engineer.
Yes.
And we don't run across too many chemical engineers who have that designation. Why did you pursue your PE, and what has it done for you?
Well, I became interested in that really out of school. That it was emphasized across the board in all engineering majors when I was finishing my bachelor's degree at Arkansas. And I try to explain to students that you really don't know all the different types of jobs you may have across your career as an engineer. And again, chemical engineers typically do not need that. They will not necessarily be stamping blueprints or endorsing designs, because typically that liability is borne within the corporation that they work with, whereas some other majors like civil, they're interfacing and building bridges, roads, buildings, that sort of thing. Chemical engineers are, if they're doing design work, they're designing compressors, heat exchangers, distillation towers. Again, all of that liability. First, it's not directly interfacing with the public, and then secondly, it's within a corporation that sort of carries that liability. But I wanted that PE well before I even thought about becoming a college professor. How that served me, it's allowed me to work in design. At my previous university, the state of Louisiana at that time wanted all design teachers to have professional engineering licensure, which I think was a wise thing, and so that became very useful to me in my design instruction.
Would you recommend other students pursue
I recommend,
that?
even with the idea that our chemical engineers might not use it, we have a class that we created strictly for preparing to take the fundamentals of engineering exams. So the EIT designation, engineering training, is something that you take a first exam upon graduation, or you're in your final year. After passing that exam, you practice for several years, then you're able to sit for the professional engineering exam. And so I encourage all of our students to take that. We have several of us who are senior faculty who are registered professional engineers, and we really do try to emphasize that because, again, it's a career enhancement that you don't know when you might use it. I've encouraged my own, I have 4 children, 3 of whom are practicing engineers, and I've encouraged each of them to pursue that as well.
So you've mentioned being prepared for changes in your career, and we've all experienced how we end up doing things we didn't necessarily plan to do.
Right.
But you said you went to grad school because you enjoy teaching, and although you still teach, you're also director now of the Swalm School, which has a lot of administration and the fun things that go along with that. How did that transition happen, and how did you feel prepared to move into administration?
It's interesting. In gifting, I really enjoy the classroom. I do. That is my cup of tea. I really like interacting directly with the students. So I've tried to maintain that throughout my career. The administrative option came about really the year after I gained what's called tenure. After 6 years, typically in many institutions, you put forth all of your work. They take that entire body of work, of research, publications, your teaching accolades, and then they decide whether you will be tenured or not. And that's a very nice thing that secures sort of your long-standing association in higher education. The very next year after that, I was asked to take on an administrative role, which is somewhat unusual. Usually that comes several years into your career. But in year 7, I was asked and took that on. Yes, it did begin to change the dynamic of my work. I became much less involved in research and much more involved in day-to-day operations. But it seemed to suit. The opportunity to sort of take on a responsibility to serve the program as a whole was attractive, and it's been something now out of 33 years, I'm sorry, it will be 22 years that I've been involved in some administrative role, much to my surprise.
Well, we know students are often looking at various colleges, universities to attend, and they have multiple choices. And I think a lot of times they forget that faculty also have choices in where they work. So you mentioned you came to us from another school. Can you tell us what was it about Mississippi State and the Bagley College that attracted you to come here?
Oh, I love that. The story on that one is I was working on co-op. My passion is to help students find their career path. That's what drives me. I want to see them find that great job. And it's just a privilege just when they come in and say, Doc, I did it. I found the job I want. I can't wait to get started, whether it's co-op or full-time. And in that, I was working on co-op for the college there at Louisiana Tech, and particularly for chemical engineering. And I called LSU, and someone there, I was looking for information. They said, well, you really need to call Mississippi State. They have a program that we copied or imitated, and they've got a great program, one of the best in the country. And that's close to a quote. Love that. So I called over to talk about co-op and ended up in a job interview. And it was a job that dealt directly with students, an endowed position that put me directly interfacing with students all day, every day. And so that's what brought me here. And shortly thereafter, then I moved into an administrative role as well.
Well, we certainly do have a good co-op program. And
yes, we do.
I'm glad you also encourage students to pursue that as well. So although you're director of the Swalm School of Chemical Engineering, one of your programs is also Petroleum Engineering. Can you tell us a little bit about Petroleum Engineering, how that came to be in the program, and maybe some differences or similarities between the two?
Sure. Petroleum Engineering, it took a hiatus. It sort of took a break back in, I think, 1993 here at Mississippi State. Same thing happened at Louisiana Tech about the same year. The industry was sort of down and out a little bit at that time, and there weren't very many majors. Well, we were thrilled that the state of Mississippi authorized the restart of a bachelor's of science in petroleum engineering starting in the fall of 2015. Our first class graduated in the spring of 2018, and petroleum engineers, in a sense, they bring the resource, they find it, they discover, they quantify and characterize where oil and gas is located in around the world. And then they have the technology, and a much advanced technology, to bring that resource to the surface and then get it in the pipeline. Once it comes to the refinery, that's when the chemical engineer typically takes over and then begins that process of converting. And so petroleum engineers are about the discovery, characterization, and delivery of that energy resource.
Well, we also have a well-known and well-respected chemical engineering program, and I know within that program you have 3 concentrations. Can you tell us real quick a little about those 3?
Yeah, the 3 concentrations evolved, and I try to help students understand, please do not think it's more than it is. A concentration is simply a curriculum plan. One is biomolecular, and that's geared for those individuals who want to pursue pre-medical, pre-dental, pre-pharm, pre-pharmacy, those types of plans when they want to go into those schools. The research and development really is to prep students who are thinking about an engineering graduate program. That's the essence. But by far, the predominant number of our involvement of our students is with the practice concentration, which is the traditional chemical engineering program we've had since we started almost 70 years ago.
Okay. You've done a lot in your career, so in about 30 seconds, can you tell us, maybe from some students, if you had an opportunity to do something over, what would you do differently?
I'd probably be more organized. After all these years of teaching my students, the one thing they say, Doc, can you be more organized? And in all seriousness, I think bringing to the classroom a well-packaged and engaging experience is that's my passion, and I keep working on it. That's partly why I'm disorganized, because I'm constantly changing what we do. But man, that's it for me, is the classroom. I would probably maybe work harder at bringing more variety, but it's fun. It's great fun.
Well, that's always been my experience too. Is I tell a lot of prospective students that being organized and having good time management skills is key to being successful, really, not only in engineering but in life and any major.
Yep.
Well, Dr. Elmore, I want to thank you for all you're doing for the College of Engineering and the Swalm School of Chemical Engineering, and for joining us today. I know our students have a lot of respect for you. I want to thank you all for joining us and welcome you to join us next month for the next edition of Momentum TV from the James Worth Bagley College of Engineering.